Hey everyone, welcome to Twisted Talks.
I'm Josh.
I'm Tanya.
I like how you do a little... Every time Josh does the intro, he gives you a little peace sign, even though you can't see him. I think it's the cutest thing ever.
It's, well,
You always
cute.
do, and you always do it behind the laptop, so you'll go, hey everyone, welcome to Twisted Talks, and you're just doing the peace sign the whole time.
You know, shake
cute.
it up.
It's cute. He wishes you nothing but peace.
And prosperity.
And prosperity. Unless you're a murderer, then it's
the other way around.
The whole
then
way.
It's reverse peace.
I want all your peace and prosperity for myself, if you're a murderer.
I think that might be tainted. I don't think I want that.
I'll fucking take it, honestly. I could do with it.
Eat your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Do you know, it wasn't until we did that case and I listened to that song again, I was like, oh my god, Jesus Christ.
What song is that?
Dark Horse, Katy Perry and someone else that I can't remember.
I can't remember either, but Kesha also has a song.
That references,
yeah. What is it? What song is it?
Yeah, no, I know what you're on about.
I'll eat your heart like Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know. I'll eat your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay, anyway, right. By the way, we've already done Jeffrey Dahmer if you've not heard a previous episode, so that's not what this one is.
No, it's not. This is... I'm half dead today, and so is Josh, but this is the New Year's special!
And also the first episode of season 2.
Yes, which we are recording in 2022 because I'm going away for New Year's and this is the only day that we could actually record.
Exactly.
So happy 28th of December 2022.
Even though for you it is the 2nd of January 2023.
So happy New Year's.
Exactly.
So today's case is being covered by me. And it is the case of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope. Now, I had vaguely heard of this case before I started researching it, but as I said, vaguely.
And I don't think I've ever heard of it.
And I was kind of blown away by how little I was able to find on the victims and on what happened to them.
Okay.
So this case is solved but unsolved.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So today, this evening, whatever time of the day it is for you, we are going back to New Year's in New Zealand, 1997 going into 1998.
Oh, I was like 3 days old.
I have here, me and Josh were babies. Matter of fact, Josh is a newborn. Welcome to the world, Josh. So Ben Smart, who was 21, and his friend Olivia Hope, who was 17, have travelled to Furneaux Lodge in the Endeavour Inlet of the Marlborough Sounds for a New Year's Eve party. According to one source, Ben arrived separately while Olivia arrived with her sister Amelia on a yacht called the Tamarack. Now,
that sounds like something out of a Marvel movie.
It does, yeah. The Tamarack. You're thinking of the Tesseract.
There we go.
Yeah. So the lodge had no road access and could only be reached by water, hence them arriving by yacht. And there was water taxis and everything as well. So they partied at the lodge celebrating New Year's Eve until the early hours of New Year's Day when the party began to wind down.
Excuse me.
There was a barman named Guy Wallace. We'll get more onto him later, but he was operating a water taxi and a couple of people had come up to him to ask could he take them to their...
I don't know how I feel about being that secluded.
Me either, but a couple of people had come up to him throughout the clean-up asking if he would bring them to where they were staying for the night. And when they got to the water taxi, Ben and Olivia were waiting there, also hoping to get a spin back to the Tamarack, which is where they were staying. So, when Ben and Olivia headed back to the Tamarack at about 4 a.m. to get some sleep, they discovered that some freeloaders, that's the exact word used, freeloaders, had essentially taken their bunks and there was no space left for them to sleep on the Tamarack.
And the Tamarack is the name of what again?
The yacht.
The yacht.
Olivia's yacht.
Olivia has her own yacht.
Well, I don't know if it's her own yacht.
Maybe it was a rental, who knows?
It's the yacht that her and her sister had arrived on,
yes.
And suddenly there was no more room.
I still can't get over the name of it.
The Tamarack. As well, this is in New Zealand, so there would be some names that are kind of like interesting and funky and things like that. So, as I said, the Tamarack was full. There was no room at the inn, nowhere to sleep. So they were eager to get back to shore and find somewhere to sleep. So the two got back into the water taxi, which was being driven by Guy Wallace, who was the lodge bartender. The other passengers on board were Hayden Morrissey, Sarah Dyer, and a lone unknown man. This man offered Ben and Olivia a place to sleep on his yacht. They both agreed, so Wallace dropped the three of them off at the yacht, which he said was more of a ketch, which we'll get into later. It's
Okay.
two totally different types of yachts. Of boats.
Yachts.
Of yachts.
Yodley.
Two totally different types of boats. And then Wallace dropped his other two passengers off at their holiday home and headed back himself to get
Wouldn't
some
you
rest.
love to have a holiday home?
Honestly, it's all I want from life.
I'd be living in it permanently though, so it probably wouldn't be much of a holiday home.
Just a house in the woods where no one can reach me.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Except emergency services in case of emergency.
Yeah. But honestly, just leave me be.
And then there shall be no emergency.
So on January 2nd, after Ben and Olivia didn't return home, both of their parents, both sets of parents, the Smarts and the Hopes, reported them missing. Police immediately began investigating, and the case was later assigned the name Operation Tam, which was an abbreviation from Tamarack.
Okay.
Police began to wonder if...
And I'm assuming their last scene was dropped off at that other yacht.
Yep, they were never seen again.
Or boat, whatever it was.
So they were never seen again after being dropped off.
And that they were dropped off by the water taxi.
By the water taxi.
Okay.
So police immediately begin investigating. It gets the code name Operation Tam. Police begin to wonder if this could be a murder case, and they begin searching for this lone unknown man from the water taxi. Initially, police had treated the case as a missing persons case, but it was considered extremely out of character for either Ben or Olivia to not come home or make contact with their families
They
or
weren't
their
the
friends.
type, like, to be disappearing
Exactly.
without someone knowing where they were.
Exactly. So Detective Inspector Rob Pope was put in charge of Operation Tam.
I'm loving all the names in this.
Yeah. The investigation was large, with requests for the public to provide any information they may have. A significant amount of interviews were conducted across the country, and over the course of months, extensive searches were also carried out in the waters around Endeavour Inlet, but no sign of Olivia or Ben was ever found.
And that was going on months, like, so...
Yeah. So there was, like Josh, when I say there was literally, to this day, nobody knows where these two are.
Okay.
Nobody knows where they are, if they're dead, if they're alive, where their bodies are, where they
So this
might
is
be.
where obviously I'm assuming we'll get onto it later, but I'm assuming this is kind of why you said it started solved but unsolved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, yeah,
So-
I don't want to say anything in case I'm right, because I don't want to jump the gun.
Let's move on. Now, every article that I found for this next bit legitimately just said, police said this guy was responsible.
Why?
That's all. Like every single article except for the Wikipedia article just said police said this guy was responsible, or police believed this guy was responsible, and that's why he was arrested. So this next bit is from Wikipedia. I've verified as much of it as I can, and it does seem to be fairly legit.
Yeah.
So with that said, police had very little to go on, but claimed that there were a number of descriptions of a Scott Watson, I have him down as Wilson here, but it's Watson, from earlier in the night, and that these descriptions were similar to descriptions of the lone man from the water taxi, saying the man appeared, the lone man, the mystery man, appeared unkempt with wavy hair and needed a shave and a haircut. However, a photograph of Watson taken on the Mina Cornelia yacht where he had partied before going to Furneaux Lodge that night shows him clean-shaven and with short hair.
And this is the water taxi man.
This is who's supposedly the water taxi man. So police have said he matches the description, but there are photographs of him from that night where he
So
is
how
shown,
can he match the description?
where he's shown to not match the description.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as I said to you before this, you are going to get very annoyed and very frustrated, because I know I did. So already the police are contradicting themselves here. They're saying that the mystery man from the water taxi is unkempt, needs a shave, needs a haircut, his hair is wavy. Scott Watson has been shown that night to have
Not match that description at all,
not match that
basically.
description. He was clean shaven. Like, I've seen photos, he was clean shaven. His hair wasn't long by any means. Like, polar opposites, I would
Yeah,
say.
so it's like, was there someone else doing a water taxi service unofficially?
I don't know. So,
Out in the prowl, literally.
yeah. Now, this is a direct quote from Wikipedia. Quote, police quickly focused their investigation on Watson. Later in the investigation, Pope would say Watson, quote, stood out like dog's balls.
Like dogs.
Yeah. And, quote, had the right sort of agenda and pedigree, apparently referring to his criminal record. Now, in terms of Watson's criminal record, he did have 48 convictions at this time.
Oh, wow.
Most from when he was a teenager, and these included burglary, theft, cannabis offences, 2 counts of possessing an offensive weapon, and 1 count of assault when he was 16 years old. Watson had been in prison for 2 short periods of time in 1989 and 1990, but seemed to have turned a page in his 20s with just 1 conviction in the 8-year period leading up to New Year's Eve.
And were the prison sentences related to what you already listed, or do we know were they for something else?
No idea, I couldn't
Because
find.
realistically, most of his offences sound like petty crimes.
That's exactly
Do you know, it doesn't sound like, okay, obviously there's an assault there, but that was when he was 16, maybe he just lost the rag.
And he was now in his 20s.
You know.
And hadn't had any other violent convictions that I know of in that 8-year period.
Yeah,
from 1990 to 1997, 98.
Don't get me wrong, it's possible that he could still have snapped, but I don't see how it's not any more possible that anyone else without convictions could even snap.
Exactly.
It's not like he attempted to murder someone or anything.
No, like there was no violent convictions apart from that assault, and I don't know the circumstances of that assault. It could have been self-defense.
It could have been a bar fight.
To defend someone. It could have been something that got out of hand. Maybe he was resisting arrest. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that it could have been. And I don't want to be spreading misinformation, of course. So, additionally, Scott Watson's boat, which was called Blade, which just every time I wrote Blade down in this, it made me think of the movie Blade.
That's what I was thinking as well.
So Watson's boat, Blade, was a 26-foot long yacht hosting a steel sloop with 1 mast and no portholes, and looked nothing like the wooden ketch, which is a 2-masted sailboat that Guy Wallace, the water taxi driver, claimed to have dropped Ben, Olivia and the mystery man off at. So Wallace says he dropped the 3 off at the mystery man's well-maintained timber ketch. It had a thick blue stripe on the hull and several round brass portholes. Hayden Morrissey, who was also a passenger on the water taxi, also says that they did not drop the 3 off. No, sorry, that they did drop the 3 off at a different boat and that it was not Blade.
Okay.
So now we've got 2 eyewitnesses.
Confirming.
2 of the last people to be seen with Olivia and Ben saying that Blade, Scott Watson's boat, was not the boat that they dropped them off at.
Well, it doesn't sound anything like it by the descriptions.
The description they've given...
doesn't even sound like you could mix them up.
Exactly, and the description that they have given is of a very distinctive boat with brass portholes and a big blue stripe.
And wood.
It's made of wood. I can't remember exactly what Watson's boat was made of, but I think it was steel.
And so Guy, is that one of the guys?
Guy Wallace, the water taxi driver.
He was the water taxi driver, and Watson...
Scott Watson, the suspect.
Was just a suspect who happened to have a boat as well.
Yeah, bear in mind now, Watson, as far as I know at this point, maybe I might contradict myself later, but from what I can remember right now...
Up to this moment in time.
Was not actually on that water taxi. It was the mystery guy who they think was...
Matches his
Watson.
Description, even though going by photos earlier that night, there is no description matching.
Josh.
So there's a mystery guy on this water taxi as well that people are pointing the finger at the wrong person.
Just you fucking wait. Just you wait. So, thousands of photos that were taken that night were analysed, and according to police, there was no corroboration of Wallace's description of a ketch in the Endeavour Inlet. Later at trial, the Crown claims that police eliminated every other boat seen that night, including 176 other yachts that were seen in the same vicinity as Watson's yacht at the time Wallace claimed to have dropped them off. Wallace is claiming to have dropped them off to a ketch, not a yacht.
Okay.
They're 2 very different types of boats.
Like a yacht is very distinctive.
Yeah, and it's also possible that maybe this particular boat didn't show up in any pictures from that night. Maybe they were parked at a vantage point where no one could take pictures
if this
of
mystery
them.
boat was going to be doing something shady, obviously they're going to try and make sure the boat is in a place where it's going to be out of kind of the limelight.
Yeah, exactly. So just like lots of weird things. I feel like we're going to have a lot to discuss at the end of this.
Yeah, because so far there's no major there's nothing that stands out to me to be able to point any fingers at anywhere, so I don't know how the police have a suspect.
Exactly.
Not saying that I'm better than the police, obviously, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Now, Detective Pope, if you remember, Rob Pope, the detective in charge of Operation Tam.
Every time I hear a Pope, I just think of Scandal.
Yeah. later stated he did not believe that the ketch existed. And despite a number of witnesses coming forward to say that they had seen a two-masted ketch that night, these witnesses say their statements were never followed up on, or they were told that their information was not wanted. A former officer who worked the case, Mike Chappelle, also later claimed that officers were told not to follow up on sightings of two-masted ketches. It's giving tunnel vision.
It's giving a bit sus. It's like, is it tunnel vision as in the sense that, like, you're so, like, ego, like, is heightened and you're stuck on what you want it to be more so than what it could be? Or is it a case of somebody's in with the police who owns these ketches?
I need my stronger vape for the
fresh one.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's giving, like, yeah, as you said, tunnel vision. Do you know, having an ego, wanting it to be what you think it is and not wanting to be wrong?
Yeah.
Or it's giving someone has one foot in with the police.
Yeah. Like, it's giving something isn't right. Like,
Something
there is
sus.
something clearly sus here.
Whether it's ego or whether it's we know the person who has the ketch and we're not doing this.
Exactly, because I, like, as I was doing the research on this, I was thinking, okay, maybe it was a police officer that killed them, or maybe someone related to a police officer killed them and it's all a cover-up, or maybe excuse me,
that's the word I was looking for. It's given tunnel vision or cover-up.
Yeah. But it also could be a case of the person who was on that ketch just will never be caught because police didn't investigate this line of inquiry.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't do any investigation into it whatsoever from my perspective. Now, I know they investigated a little bit, but there's more that could have been done.
Yeah, and they could have done it
questioning
sooner.
Witnesses and things. So it's possible that this person will never be caught because they have disposed of the bodies and they've disposed of the evidence. They could have even sold the ketch.
Yeah, but you're like, what? It's nearly 25 years ago.
Exactly. Like, it's fucking insane when you think about it.
The reason I got that maths done so quick is because of my birth.
Yeah. So police seized Watson's boat, Blade, and began to focus their investigation on him. One writer, Mike White, who was an investigative journalist for North and South, says that at this point of the investigation, a, quote, public demonisation of Watson began, with police often doing little to stop rumours about him that began swirling, end quote.
Even though their evidence is absolutely horrendous and doesn't really point at him, but anywho.
Just wait till we get to the trial, Josh, like...
Oh, there's even a trial.
There's so much to this case, and the sad part is there's so much to this case and it's not about the victims.
Yeah.
Like, just wait.
They're too busy trying to get conviction, whether it's the right man or the wrong man, that the victims are being overshadowed.
Exactly. Now, as rumours began to circulate about the Watson family, police ramped up the next stage of what they were calling Operation Celt. They obtained warrants to tap Watson's his phone lines, and collected over 70 hours of phone conversations. They even persuaded Watson's ex-girlfriend to ask him incriminating questions over the phone. At trial...
So they've got him to trial.
At trial, the jury only heard 40 minutes of edited recordings out of 70 hours.
You can do a lot with 40 minutes of edited out of 70 hours. You can make someone sound guilty even if they're completely innocent.
Exactly. And police described him as smug during these phone conversations that they recorded, but he never said anything that indicated he had even the slightest involvement in the crime.
Trying to plant a seed in the jurors' heads and hoping they take the bait, basically.
Now, Watson alleges that the police influenced media coverage to make him look guilty.
Well, they didn't, as you said a while ago, they didn't try and stop it.
Nope. They followed and intimidated his friends and family, and that the police had alleged that Watson had previously had an incestuous affair with his sister. This last detail is actually corroborated by Olivia Hope's father, Gerald, as in Olivia, the girl that Scott is supposed to have murdered. Her dad has come out and said that police deliberately leaked details of Watson's criminal past and were behind the unsubstantiated claims of incest.
So even he's saying that, like, these claims are they're being done by the police.
Yeah.
And it's his daughter that's missing.
It's his daughter that's missing, like his child.
And even he doesn't believe that this is the person, clearly, because otherwise why would you be kind of defending him in a way?
Exactly.
Because
like,
if you believed it was them, you'd do everything you could to try and help get them behind bars.
Exactly.
But clearly you're like, no, this doesn't add up.
And
if he can be that, like, what's the word?
Impartial.
Impartial, that's it. If he
well,
can
not
be
even
that,
impartial,
like,
because impartial kind of gives the... I don't like the word impartial because it kind of gives a connotation that he doesn't care, but...
Well, like, I mean, as
objective.
in, like... Objective, yeah.
Objective.
If he can look at it, like, objectively, when it's his child that
like,
is missing...
put his feelings and his pain and
he's
his
not letting his feelings and his pain want to pin it
side.
on someone that it's not.
Exactly. He wants to
But yet
ensure
the police
that,
are doing that.
Yeah, like, it's absolutely insane. And it gets worse. It does get worse, in my opinion. So on April 20th, 1998, Guy Wallace, who was the water taxi driver and the barman at Furneaux Lodge, was shown a photo lineup consisting of 8 different photos. In one of these shots, Scott Watson had been caught mid-blink. This led to the appearance of him having hooded eyes, just like the mystery man. Now, as a result, Wallace picked Watson from the lineup, and so did Ros McNeely.
Okay.
McNeely, I think it is. The bar manager who had served the mystery man that night. Neither witness was shown any additional photos of Watson where he wasn't blinking, or the photos of him on the Mina Cornelia where he was clean-shaven with short hair.
They just showed photos that suited what they want.
Yep, and based on these identifications, Scott Watson was arrested for the murders of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope on June 15th, 1998. The two had been missing for around 5 months at this point. Later, both Wallace and McNeely recanted, stating, quote, "The police deceived them with the blink photo." So basically what it seems here, what happened is, in the composite sketch given by these witnesses, the mystery man had hooded eyes. Okay?
Yeah.
So it just so happened that in one of the booking photos, Watson blinked.
So
Now,
it
I've seen
looks
this
like...
photo. It honestly doesn't look like he was blinking. It does look like he has hooded eyes just because of the way it was caught.
Yeah.
But
he actually doesn't.
In other photos of him, you can see clearly he does not have hooded eyes.
They're basically trying to frame him.
They are. Like,
they're like, yeah, we're not going to
actually,
we're actually not going to do our job. We're not going to try and find the right person. We're just going to frame them and call it a day.
Yeah, like, I've never seen anything like this. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, absolutely crazy to me. Now, the trial attracted considerable media attention from the time that it began on June 10th of 1999 until it finished, and the verdicts were delivered on September 11th, 1999. Now, the Crown called around 488 witnesses. The Crown is the prosecution.
Yeah. Because sure, New Zealand's part of the Commonwealth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I found very confusing when I was doing some researchy bits for this. So the Crown called around 488 witnesses, and the two families felt wildly different about it, about the whole trial. And
the two families being...
Ben and Olivia's families.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So Olivia's father, Gerald, felt that most of the prosecution's case was, quote, theatre.
Yeah.
And relied heavily on emotional manipulation of the jurors, while Ben Smart's mother, Mary, said, quote, "We think differently. As far as we are concerned, it was a fair and just trial," end quote. Now, after the trial's conclusion, Gerald Hope went to see the Blade, the boat, for himself.
Yeah.
And he felt it was unlikely that Ben and Olivia could have been locked in such a small cabin. Like, as in both of them.
Yeah, one maybe.
Yeah, or that Olivia would have even entered the cabin as a place to sleep.
Okay.
So, like, as her father, he went and looked at the boat and he went,
No.
I don't see my daughter stepping foot into that cabin to go to sleep.
Yeah. And who's going to know her best?
Exactly. So, in terms of theories, the police had only one. And this was that Scott Watson had invited Ben and Olivia to sleep on his boat, killed them and disposed of their bodies. Unfortunately, all of the evidence in this case is extremely reliant on circumstance and hearsay.
Yeah.
And the prosecution's case relied heavily on the identifications made by Guy Wallace and Ros McNeely, both of whom had presented affidavits claiming their identifications of Watson had been due to police misleading them with the blink photo.
Therefore, they now didn't believe.
They basically wanted to retract their statements.
They were like, that's wrong.
Yeah. Oh God, where was I? Another water taxi driver named Don Anderson testified that he had dropped Scott Watson back to Blade between 2 and 4 a.m. And some occupants of nearby boats, the Mina Cornelia, which is where Watson had been partying before going to the lodge,
Yeah.
and Bianco.
Where there was photos of him clean shaven.
Exactly, and Bianco, which was another yacht that was nearby where he was parked up, I suppose. Oh God, where am I again? So witnesses on the Mina Cornelia and the Bianco testified that they were woken up by Watson, who wanted to party. Both the Crown and the defence agree that this trip took place. So both prosecution and defence agree that
That is true.
That is true. This water taxi driven by Don Anderson dropped him off between these hours. Now this bit.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Hold on. So, later in the trial, and this was quite late in the trial that this theory surfaced. The Crown argued that Watson had returned to shore again after Anderson had dropped him back to the Blade, but they could not say how, as in how he got back to shore. This would become known as the two-trip theory. According to the Crown's argument, it didn't matter that the prosecution couldn't prove how Watson got back to shore, because witnesses claimed to have seen him involved in an altercation on shore between 3 and 3:30 a.m. Therefore, he must have gone back to shore.
But is it not possible that happened earlier and they just got the time wrong?
Or that maybe it was someone that looked like him.
Or there's someone that looked like him. Yeah.
Like
that's not concrete evidence at all.
I'm speechless. Like,
yeah.
The investigation
is a joke.
Is beyond a joke. And, like...
I don't understand how a judge could even take this seriously.
I swear to God, like, I was reading all this, Josh, and I was like, what the actual fuck is going on? Like, what is happening?
I'd actually throw the case out and be like, come back when you actually have evidence.
This is the first case that we have covered that happened in New Zealand, and I'm hoping this doesn't set the tone for how the justice system in New Zealand is. Any listeners in New Zealand, send us some case
ideas as well if you want, some New Zealand cases.
Bob, I know you're listening. You live in New Zealand. You surely have good cases that you can suggest to us. Please, we're covering your last suggestion next week. Come on, you can do it.
If you're being cute.
Now, the only other evidence held by the defence was found when they seized Watson's boat on January 12th, 1998. The forensic examination of the boat turned up a number of human hairs on a blanket. Now, of the 400 hairs found on this blanket, 400 hairs on one blanket. What the fuck was that?
I don't know, I'm going to assume it's someone's bin.
I thought someone was getting into the car. So of the 400 hairs found on this blanket, 2 were said to be a match to Olivia's reddish gold hair type.
So they weren't a DNA match to her, they were just a match to her hair tone.
Jumping the gun. At trial, Susan Vintner, who was a forensic biologist, said that one hair, now remember they found 2 hairs that match the colour of Olivia's hair.
Yeah.
Only one of them was a DNA match to Olivia.
Okay.
Now, in my mind, if one of those reddish gold hairs is a match, the other one should also be a match.
You would imagine.
But it is possible that maybe, because I think they extract the DNA from the root.
So maybe the other one didn't have a root.
Now, this evidence of this one hair matching Olivia's DNA was considered strong enough to overcome the uncertainty surrounding the identifications given and retracted by Wallace and McNeely. Prosecution also stated that Scott Watson had cleaned Blade thoroughly to destroy any evidence of Ben and Olivia being on board after he had killed them. The only fingerprints found on board were those of Scott and his sister Sandra Jo, who had sailed with her brother for a few days before the new year. Watson said he had cleaned the Blade due to sea spray, as he had had a rough trip from North Island just before New Year's Eve. Now, if he had thoroughly cleaned the boat to eliminate any signs of Ben and Olivia being there.
I would dump the blanket as well.
He would have dumped the blanket unless he was too stupid. But also his fingerprints and his sister's fingerprints wouldn't still be there because his sister's fingerprints predate Ben and Olivia going missing.
So if it was such a thorough clean, why were those fingerprints there?
Exactly.
Realistically, all the fingerprints should still be there if those ones are, or at least a few.
Exactly. Now, excuse me.
And like even to do with the hairs, like you could say anything to do with that. It was only 2 hairs and only one that we know was hers.
And
it could have been a case of one of her hairs got on him, he got home, put the blanket on, and it went onto the blanket.
Exactly. But we'll get back to the hair. It'll come full circle. We'll circle back to that soon. So prosecution showed the jury scratches found on the interior foam lining of the hatch cover on Watson's boat. Now, prosecution stated that the scratches could only be made with human fingernails and by someone trying to escape. However, this hatch could not be locked from the outside. So there was no way of holding someone captive. It's more for if you want to lock yourself away from someone. And it's believed that with the positioning of the scratches, like where they were positioned on the inside of the hatch, they could only have been made while the hatch was open.
Yeah, so how are you trying to scratch your way out?
So I think it's a case of if the hatch was like open up and the scratches were going downwards, then it happened when someone was walking down the steps. Whereas if the hatch was closed and the scratches were going like upwards, we'll say when the hatch was open, then it would be from someone inside.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what direction the scratches and things were going in. That's just my personal perspective.
But either way, it's a hatch that can only be locked and unlocked from the inside.
Exactly.
So how would you exactly trap someone without you also being in there with them and trying to keep them away from it?
Or sitting on top of the fucking hatch on the outside or something. But even if he put something on top of the hatch to keep it closed, that would have left evidence. It would have left scratches. It would have left marks. It would have left
something,
kind of
surely,
something. Now, so it's believed the positioning of the scratches meant that they could only have been caused while the hatch was open, and Scott and Sandra Jo say the scratches were made by Scott Watson's nieces.
Okay,
so I'm assuming those would be Sandra Jo's kids.
Yeah.
And obviously kids, I could tell you now, I work with kids, they could break iron if you gave them a chance.
Oh yeah.
Now at trial, the jury also heard from 2 witnesses, only referred to as Witness A and Witness B, and for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call them A and B. So both A and B claimed to have met Scott Watson while he was in prison on remand, and both said that he had told them he was responsible for murdering Ben and Olivia. These statements
were... sorry, where did these meet? In prison?
So in prison while he was on remand, so before he would have been sentenced. He would have been held in prison.
So would these have also been people waiting on remand? Because you'd hardly get put into general population so soon.
They were either on remand or it was just the prison that he was on remand in. They were in that prison serving sentences for their own crimes.
Yeah, and exactly. And if they were already incarcerated, they'd say anything to try and shorten their sentence.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll kind of get into it a little bit more. But so both A and B claim to have met Scott while he was in prison on remand, and both said that he had told them he was responsible for murdering Ben and Olivia. Now, these statements were described by author John Golter as a bombshell, and that he said that it really influenced the court case going forward.
Okay.
Which obviously it would. These are new statements from new witnesses who claim to have inside information.
But in my opinion, aren't these even trustworthy witnesses? Do you know what I mean?
I think you would have to...
And who's just going to randomly, while you're on remand and your trial's not even finished, who's going to be like, I did it.
I killed these people.
I did a little bit of killing.
Just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
However, A later admitted to numerous lawyers and to the New Zealand Herald that he had lied in court. He explained that while in prison at that time, he had been receiving death threats from a gang member and expressed that he had been due up for parole. He says police visited him 10 times over the course of the year leading up to the trial, and that he had been pressured into making false accusations in his testimony. A said he, quote, chose to help police in the hope that they would be able to save him. B said that he and Watson interacted on multiple occasions and became good friends while they were both in Addington prison. In actual truth and fact, B was never in the same cell as Watson and had very little opportunity to form any close bond or relationship with him. You know, like the type of close bond or relationship you might need for someone to confess murder to you.
Yeah. So it sounded like a whole lot of bullshit here.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, even to confess a double murder.
Like, B sounds like bullshit and A just sounds like doing what the police wanted in order
Yeah.
to hopefully get help.
So it later came out that B was granted the use of a car and a phone by police upon his release from prison in exchange for his testimony. So in September 1999, after an 11-week trial, Watson was found guilty of the murders of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope.
Oh, for God's sake, on what merit?
He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years, meaning he could not be eligible for parole until he had
done
served
that.
17 years. And when the verdict was read out in court, Watson simply told the jury, "You're wrong," and has consistently insisted his innocence since then.
So he's still in prison?
He's still in prison. Now,
This is disgraceful.
I have a good bit here on his appeals, and that's kind of the last bit that I have on this case. But just before we get into the appeals, what the fuck?
No, that really annoys me because I'm like, every fucking drop of evidence is hearsay, circumstantial. And don't get me wrong, sometimes circumstantial evidence is evidence.
Yes.
There are multiple situations where I will go along with circumstantial evidence in a court case and be like,
when it follows
other things.
other things, other than just...
When there's merit.
When there's merit, yeah.
But there's
Like,
no merit to any of this.
it
I'm not
just
saying he didn't do it, because who knows, but there's no evidence to suggest
There's no
that
evidence
he
to
did.
suggest that he did. There's nothing to prove that he did. They don't have Ben and Olivia's bodies. They have no
And like the way the
concept
police did it with the
of-
photos and everything to
like,
get
that's
those
just
confirmations.
Sneaky. That's sneaky.
That's
a
a
complete
setup.
violation. Like, that's a complete violation of his human rights.
So how can you trust anything they put
Or
forward?
civil rights or
Yeah.
whatever.
But how can you trust anything they put forward?
Exactly. Like, it's just crazy to me that... Like, I know it was the 90s.
I don't care when
But
it
the
fucking
90s
was.
weren't that long ago.
It could be the fucking Jurassic period for all I care.
Like...
I think a T-Rex would have handled
and
the case
thing
better.
is, I'm sure this has happened with a few other cases, particularly, like, I know it's going to seem like I'm singling out the United States. I'm not singling out the United States. That's just where the cases that I know of are from. It happens everywhere. Don't get me wrong. Not trying to single out
I
the
feel like it's
Americans.
just the United States is much bigger, so you
It's
hear
bigger,
of
so
much
you hear
more.
about
There's
it
more
more.
crime because there's
Yeah.
more people. You know, it's all
Like,
down to
what
population, I
case-
suppose.
What case was it? It's an Irish case. Oh my good God. Why can't I think of the names of the victims? But I remember it was, I think, two young people were murdered. I think they were late teens, early 20s. And 3 young fellas basically ended up getting blamed for it by the guards. And the guards took these 3 young fellas in, battered them to fucking, like, within an inch of their lives. I'm pretty sure one of them actually died. And I'm sure it turned out they were innocent. Now, could be wrong. This is all just from memory. My memory's a bit scatty, but
Mood.
you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, no, it happens everywhere. But like even here, like, you know, even like I've often said it to you in terms of looking for Irish cases, it's very hard because a
There's
lot of
not
Irish
enough
cases there's not enough
information.
information out there, and you know, so and like I find that like things aren't publicised as much here as they would be in the likes of
and I
other
have
countries.
to say, like, as always, I'm gonna give a shout out to Murder Most Irish because I adore them. But the amount of work that they put in and the amount of research that they put in, like, I know they've mentioned they've paid for articles, they've paid for things to get
you would have to
accurate
with the Irish
information,
stuff, really.
and they always have their cases so well presented and with so much information to back it up. And they predominantly do Irish cases.
Yeah,
so
so
imagine
fair
how
play.
much work they have to put in
Yeah.
to get the information.
Because it's hard to find, and like you said, they probably do have to pay for a lot of it to
Yeah,
find
like
the best parts.
I'm sure it was.
Well, not the best parts given the topic, but you know
I'm
what
sure
I mean.
Emma mentioned in a couple of episodes back that she had to pay for like an article for the Irish
Yeah,
Independent or
I was
something,
just about to say you probably need a subscription to them to get the best
to
of
get the best
information.
articles. But yeah, like it's sad really because I think like cases here in Ireland don't get enough publicity.
Yeah.
Especially like even as they're happening, like with the Anna Kriegel case, I found out most of what I know about the Anna Kriegel case by looking into it myself.
Yeah, like I heard the odd couple of bits here there on the radio,
Yeah.
but nothing specific, more so bullet points of how the trial was going or kind of small bits, not enough
Or even
considering
like,
the case.
all the stuff that's been happening in Furneaux, like that's not getting enough publicity. Like it's shit because like
What are we referring to?
like there's been at least 2 to 3 sexual assaults and rapes in the last couple of
I
months.
did hear about one the other week, alright.
One the other week, there was that one a couple of months ago. in not the park, it was up by the pitch, by one of the schools. Like, by one of the secondary schools, in broad daylight. Like, I would be nervous.
Yeah, like, I haven't heard anything
nearby.
anywhere. We just hear about that because we live nearby, so it's word of mouth.
Exactly. But, like, you'd rarely hear anything like that that's happening in a smaller town. On the radio or anything, and it is something that's happening, like.
But then it's kind of hard as well, because even like my friend in America, she has told me like that there's a lot of things even over there that like aren't publicised.
Yeah,
because she's
ridiculous.
like, and the reason she says it is she was like, it happens too much.
It does.
We can't. There was like, it can't be publicised because there'll be something new every 2 seconds.
Exactly. But even like, I just think
it has to be really, really huge.
It has to be sensationalised for it to be covered. Like, it can't just be, oh, a woman was taking her dog for a walk and someone tried to rape her. We're going to talk about this on the news. We're going to talk about this on the radio to raise awareness so that other young women know to be safe in this area.
Yeah.
Or so that other young men know to be safe in this area, because it doesn't just happen to women, and it's talked about a hell of a lot less when it happens to young men or to any man. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, it is crazy. Like, when that spate of spikings was happening, where people were getting spiked by injection, like.
And apparently now there's a thing going around where you don't even need an injection. It's just something you rub off someone's arm and it absorbs into the blood.
It's fucking disgusting. But like, that wasn't reported.
Now, pinch
like,
of salt,
that was
I've only
happening
heard
in
about
Ireland.
that.
It was happening in Ireland. It wasn't as prevalent as in other places in the world.
Yeah.
But it was happening in Ireland, and the only reason I knew it was happening in areas around me and spaces that I would be
Word
going
of mouth,
to,
people it happened to
was because of Irish TikTokers that I follow that it happened to.
I saw it
that
on TikTok.
Were brave enough to make a video
story.
and tell the story and be like, I'm still in the hospital recovering from this, or this is what happened to me, I had to be rushed to A&E or whatever, because you don't know how someone's going to react to what you give
and
them.
I can't remember who it was, but there was someone I actually know who wasn't 100% sure, but they were really bad on the night out, like, and they couldn't place it because they hadn't drank too much or anything like that, and then they did find a mark the next day, I think, but I can't remember who it was. But I just know, so like, they don't know for sure, but there's no other reason that they could have that mark, and then it was around the time we were all hearing about that, so 2 and 2
makes 4. But yeah, it annoys me that these things aren't talked about as much, because
even just for the sake of making people aware to be safe.
Exactly, because there are people out there who come from more sheltered households where they wouldn't be aware that these things happen, where their parents might be like trying to protect them from it by not telling them about it. But by protecting them,
you're actually putting them at risk.
Exactly.
Your heart and intentions are in the best place, but they need to be aware of the big bad world.
But like, it's people like that who don't know to be aware, who don't know like how to take action and protect themselves. Yeah,
because like, if you think everyone's great, what are you going to do? Hand a stranger your drink and be like, will you mind that while I go toilet?
And the thing is, like, I know the things to do to take steps to protect myself, to ensure that I don't get spiked, and to make sure that nothing bad happens. But that doesn't mean it would never happen. But exactly, that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Because a lot of people that it does happen to are also aware of all the steps and how to be careful. And the only reason I know to be careful is because I've been spiked.
Yeah.
And it's awful. It took me like 3 days to recover.
Same. I've been spiked before as well, I think. I don't know for sure, but going by the way I think I was.
I know I was, because I was at that festival.
Same.
I won't name the festival because I don't want to get in trouble, but I was at that festival. It was my second year there, and I had brought Captain Morgan's with me. Don't know why I brought Captain Morgan's. I'm not even a big fan of Captain Morgan's. So
maybe it was on sale.
Probably was. I was broke college student at the time, but I had a bottle of Captain Morgan's with me and a bottle of Jack Daniel's with me, and I was.
But you know what? I think I remember you going through a Captain Morgan's phase.
Yeah, but like that weekend, I had with me a bottle of Captain Morgan's, a bottle of Jack Daniel's. I didn't touch the Jack Daniel's because I was saving it for the second night, because there was a couple of acts that I wanted to see.
So
and
that
I was like,
the
saving
main
this
night,
for the
big celebrations.
Yeah. But then the Captain Morgan's, I had maybe 2 before we went into the arena.
Not a lot.
I bought 1 drink in the arena. I know exactly which tent I bought it in.
Yeah.
And within 30 to 45 minutes after having that drink, you would have thought I had necked the whole bottle of Captain Morgan's.
And at this point you'd only had 2 drinks from your tent, out of your own drink.
Out of my own drink,
and one drink
from
that
a tent.
From
and I wasn't the only girl that got spiked out of that tent that year, because I know I was talking to a few people about it, and one girl was like, oh, my friend reckons she got spiked out of da-da-da, and I was like, so do I. And then another girl I was talking to was like, yeah, that was the last place I bought a drink, and then after that I was done. And I remember, like, Becca couldn't find me anywhere. I was missing for like an hour and a half.
What year was that?
That would have been, oh God, I was like, I think I was 18, 19, I was 19. So
5, 6 years ago, roughly.
About 5 years ago.
5 to 6.
6 years ago, yeah. So it would have been like
6 years ago in the coming.
2018, 2019?
I can't do maths.
We're in 2022 right now. Minus. Oh, it would have been about 2017, 2018.
Okay, one of the two.
But yeah, like I went missing for an hour and a half. I have very, very vague memories of talking to people during that hour and a half.
Yeah.
That was when I was in my oversharing phase. So I was just plopping down at people's tables and just chatting.
Yeah.
And then, like, thankfully I was able to get myself back to my tent. And I was found face down, ass up, passed out in the tent. But I remember waking up throughout the night and I was just
Not well.
vomiting like acid out of my stomach, essentially. Like,
something was really not agreeing, like, and it was not the Captain Morgan's.
And it was rotten. Like, thank God I fell asleep on my face, because my face was turned to the side. Like, I broke my glasses and everything because I passed out. As soon as I got into the tent, I must have passed out on my face.
Yeah.
And I woke up. I kept waking up choking on my own vomit. But
good job you were waking up.
But like, I had enough presence of mind because I hadn't drank
much
as much
before that happened.
Yeah. I had enough presence of mind that I remember I was like, I would wake up, I would get sick, I would use a t-shirt that I had to wipe up the vomit so that I wouldn't choke on it, so that I wouldn't drown in it, essentially. Like, I had enough presence of mind to look after myself that way. And then the next morning...
But thank God, because imagine other people who'd had more drinks before that happened.
Oh, stop. Like,
they might not have had that presence.
Reckless.
They would have needed someone to mind them, like.
But I remember I woke up the next morning, started getting sick straight away, and I still toughed it out for the next 2 days because there was acts that I wanted to see. I was...
vigilant.
Crippled. I didn't drink. I couldn't drink even if I wanted to because I was so sick from whatever I had been given.
Yeah.
For the next like 2 to 3 days, and it took me ages to like
come back
and come out of it. Like, it was a horrible experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible. So there you go. That's the story of how I got spiked at a music festival.
We went on such a tangent there.
We did, and I've still not finished the case. So back to it. So
what are we going on to now?
Appeals. So him appealing his conviction.
Yeah.
So Watson has had many appeals throughout the years. His counsel previously questioned the chain of custody regarding the hairs found on the boat blade, on the blanket. They suggested that Susan Vintner may have mixed up the hair samples by examining the unknown hairs that were found on the boat on the same table and the same day as she examined the hairs that were known to have come from Olivia.
Okay.
So it's possible that maybe some of the hairs might have got mixed up and maybe that's why only one hair matched.
Yes. Because it was from a sample that was known to be from Olivia.
Exactly.
Not from the sample of the blanket.
And now listen to this. Defence also pointed out that there was a 1 centimetre hole in the evidence bag which contained Olivia's hair, stating that this added to the risk of contamination.
Of course, yeah.
Vintner herself stated at the trial that cross-contamination is a possibility that needs to be considered. The accuracy of the hair testing has been questioned by other experts over the years and remains a topic of controversy. So there is a lot of room here to say that there was cross-contamination.
Everything in this has just been so fucked up and wrong.
Yeah, everything. In 2000, the defence appealed Watson's conviction and the case was brought to the Court of Appeals in April and May of that year. Mm-hmm. After hearing submissions from both the defence and prosecution, the court decided there was no new evidence to recommend a second trial. They entirely disregarded a submission from the defence regarding how the prosecution's two-trip theory had appeared out of the blue late into the original trial.
With no evidence. Apart from...
But because someone saw that he was in a fight between...
Yeah, but did these people see the description of him that actually had the shaved face? Or did they see the description of the mystery man who had a beard and all this long hair and unruly looking and whatnot? Do you know what I mean? Who did they IG?
Exactly. It doesn't say. It does
because
not
it's not like he was seen at the party earlier with the beard and then he did something stupid and then shaved.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? He was seen before it happened, clean shaven.
And I've seen that picture of him on the yacht. Now, they have everyone else's faces blurred out for confidentiality, of course, but you can see him. He's got no beard, freshly shaved. I wouldn't say his hair is unkempt or long or wavy or messy.
Yeah. What a load of bollocks.
So, in November 2000, witness A contacted the Weekend Herald to say his evidence given under oath was, quote, nothing more than an act, end quote, and that he had done it due to fearing for his life from gang member threats, and that police had put him under pressure to testifying, saying, quote, I agreed on the basis that my life was getting threatened, end quote. A spoke to reporters at the New Zealand Herald for 5 hours, but refused to sign any documents that might have been helpful to Watson's lawyers. In 2003, Watson's lawyers Mike Antonovic and Greg King applied to the Privy Council, which is the highest court of appeal, and the Privy Council found no grounds for appeal.
What is wrong with all these appeals?
I swear to God, Josh,
there was no evidence in the actual trial of any use. The hair evidence was very likely, possibly cross-contaminated. Not definitely.
And there was a hole in the evidence bag,
exactly.
so that should have been considered contaminated.
That should have been thrown out full stop and being considered contaminated just to be safe.
And the fact that 2 witnesses recanted their
what type of law do they practice?
It's crazy. Like the two witnesses who ID'd him recanted, gave sworn affidavits saying that they were misled by police.
Yeah.
And that they wanted to retract their identifications.
Because it wasn't accurate.
There is an actual hole in the evidence bag.
In the main evidence, the only evidence I would say they actually have.
Biological DNA evidence that they have, and yet somehow this case was still allowed to proceed. In 2009, Watson applied to the Governor General for a royal prerogative of mercy, which, when I looked it up, is basically a royal pardon.
Because that seems to be the only way he's going to get anywhere now.
Yeah. He sent a 22-page letter with a copy of Keith Hunter's book, Trial by Trickery, which is written about his case, I'm assuming. And as well, award-winning documentary Murder on the Blade, which again is about this case.
Yeah.
Which I want to watch. Christy MacDonald was appointed to investigate by the Ministry of Justice. She produced 2 reports, one in 2011 and one in 2013. She interviewed both Wallace and McNeely, who had identified him and then retracted it because they were misled by police.
Yeah.
But found that because them recanting their IDs wasn't, quote, fresh, because it wasn't fresh, it didn't raise any reasonable doubt about the convictions. What about the hole in the evidence bag?
Yeah, but how did that not raise anything? They're saying that that's actually wrong. That's not who I saw. So what's not helpful about that?
And I'm not even there. I've still got more.
I'm tick.
In June 2015, Watson was successful in a court challenge against the Corrections Department after they denied him an interview regarding his case with North and South journalist Mike White, who I mentioned at the start, I think. Excuse me. And because he was successful in challenging this, the interview went ahead on November 8th and 9th of 2015 as planned. In November 2017, another application for a royal pardon was sent for Watson. This time it was sent on his behalf by an ex-convict from Auckland who had taken an interest in the case.
Also, apologies if you can hear the rain.
What can you do? We're nearly finished anyway. This application expressed concern regarding the reliability of the evidence relating to the hairs found. This included a forensic report from forensic scientist Sean Doyle, where he questioned whether the hairs were really Olivia's and criticised the way that the hair samples were handled at the time of the original trial.
How do you put something so important into a bag with a hole in it?
Honestly.
Or how do you take care of it so badly that a hole developed in the bag?
And also, why are you having both sets of evidence on the same table at the same time while you're examining? Like, fair enough if you've one or two, if you have like your one unknown strand and your one known strand, to like compare them with a microscope or whatever.
Yeah, because that's something you need to do. Yeah.
But like, how do you fuck up?
But like, keep the rest so far to the left, keep the other far to the right.
How do you fuck up so badly as a forensic scientist that you yourself have to say in court that cross-contamination is a real possibility that needs to be investigated? So, in June 2020, it was reported that Watson's case was to be referred back to the Court of Appeal due to continuing concern about the reliability of forensic testing carried out on the hairs that were found in the blanket on Scott's boat. Watson asked to be released from jail while preparing for the appeal, but this was denied to him in October 2021. In May 2022, so just this year, the court agreed that when the hearing does go ahead, Watson would be allowed to challenge whether the identification related to the blink photo was properly obtained and whether it should have ever even been allowed to be heard
About
by the jury
fucking
in
time.
his original trial. Due to this, the hearing has been delayed to May 2023 to allow the defence adequate time to prepare. So he might actually finally get a retrial.
I hope so, and I hope the people on it aren't fucking thick.
Now, in 2010, Scott's father, Chris Watson, and journalist Keith Hunter made a complaint to the Independent Police Conduct Authority, or the IPCA,
Good.
regarding the conduct of police during this case. The complaint alleged that the lead inspector, Rob Pope, ignored relevant evidence, spread rumours about Watson and his family, swore false affidavits in order to obtain search warrants, and that police bought or pressured two prisoners into lying in
And
court.
even not only, like, you know, getting false statements in order to get a warrant, but even the stuff that turned up in the warrant from the search was no use.
No.
Like, there's no real evidence in this case at all.
It just seems like this whole case was twisted and turned until it fit what they wanted.
It's like two biddies sitting down having tea and making up a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. They also said that police had either deliberately or accidentally contaminated the hair samples found on Watson's boat. This report was extremely critical of aspects of the investigation. It states that the photo lineup used by police breached so many rules that it, quote, exposed the integrity of the investigation to justifiable criticism and to the drawing of inferences about intention and motivation, end quote. It also states that the police failed to pursue leads to find the mystery ketch seen by many other witnesses. This included failing to pursue witnesses who believed they had seen Olivia Hope on board this ketch. Like, so not only did they tell witnesses, we don't want your information, they told witnesses who believed they had seen Olivia on this mystery ship, mystery ketch, just ignored them.
Like,
it's fucking ridiculous. The head of the IPCA, Justice Lowell Goddard, said it was, quote, a difficult inquiry and some actions of police fell short of best practice and had the potential to influence
they did a lot
witnesses.
more than fall short.
They
Badges should be taken.
totally missed the mark, like. Now, Guy Wallace, the water taxi driver, said in later years that it seemed as though the police were keen to pin it on someone. He and the others who were in the water taxi have often thought, what if I had just offered them a place to stay? Excuse me. Wallace also said, quote, I know if Scott wasn't in there, I would be in there because they just had to get someone. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's exactly how it seems.
So that's
This is so horrendous that I do genuinely think that, like, hopefully, I hope this retrial happens and I hope he gets out.
Yeah.
And I also hope that people who are investigating get severely investigated themselves.
right.
And I do think badges should be taken because this is not,
absolutely.
they're not the kind of people you want in the police force.
Even if this man is guilty.
If you're listening, fuck you.
Like, fuck the police.
Doubt you are, but fuck you if
But,
you're involved
like,
in the case.
Even if this man is guilty, even if he did kill Ben and Olivia, there is no
You still need a fair trial and
way
evidence.
that he will ever be definitively caught for it because of the way the police have fucked up this investigation. Now, I don't believe he killed them.
No, neither do I.
I don't believe for a second that he was involved.
I don't see anything that actually
He came
points
out
to
in
him.
2015 and said he never even met the two of them. And there's no evidence to support that they ever did meet or that he ever had any interactions with them. Even on that night, I don't think there's any evidence to indicate that they even brushed off each other in the crowd. So the person who actually did this
Is still out there.
Never be caught.
I would think.
Because they have had years and years and years to destroy any evidence that could possibly link them.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's obviously what you mean by solved and unsolved. So in the eyes of the police, it's solved.
Yeah.
But
In my
realistically,
eyes,
it's not solved.
unsolved.
Because they don't have the real culprit.
Exactly. Like, they just rushed to judgment.
It's literally a case of wrong place, wrong time. Not even wrong place, wrong time, because there's no evidence in said place.
I don't even know where he came from as a suspect.
They were just like, yeah, we'll go for him.
Like, as I said, every other source that I looked at, bar Wikipedia, just said police believed this was their man.
Yeah,
or
like,
something along
and
those
that's
lines.
basically, yeah, but you know what? Those sources are obviously right, because there was clearly no evidence. So they were like, police said so, so it
Yeah,
has to be it.
And even on the Wikipedia, like, it
But I
just
don't understand
says,
how so many jurors and so many appeals can be like, no.
what the fuck?
Like, are you stupid?
But even, like, the Wikipedia said that it was based on the description, but he looked nothing like the witness description.
Yeah.
Of the man on the water taxi.
So, like, if they're taking that into account in the next retrial, I don't understand how it won't be just thrown out straight away and him released. And I hope he does get released, and I hope he gets severely compensated
Oh, he'll have
financially.
to. He'll have to. Josh, he's been in prison for... He got sentenced in 1999. He's been in prison for like 23 years.
And he was in there waiting for the trial as well.
Yeah, so he has served a total of about 24 years in prison, like.
And because sure, he wasn't allowed to try and appeal until after 17.
No, he had to serve 17 years mandatory. Now, he did try to appeal in... No, sorry, it was that he couldn't get probation before his 17 years were up, but he was entitled to appeal because he started appealing in 2000.
Yeah, because so, that's like, only to get it overturned, basically.
Straight after he got sent to prison, he was trying to overturn this.
Of course.
He was fighting to prove that he was innocent. And now, usually, with a case like this, if someone is protesting their innocence, if I believe they're guilty, I believe they're guilty, but I just do not for a second.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, people can protest their innocence as much as they want,
exactly.
But if the evidence is there and I don't believe that they're innocent, then I'm just like, they just want to get out. But there's no evidence to point to this guy.
No, none. No, it's
definitely wasn't a fair trial. Definitely wasn't a fair investigation. There's nothing right about it.
Like, the man has been done wrong.
Oh yeah.
Done so
on an
wrong.
Almighty scale.
Like, it's actually terrifying to think about that. Like, these are the police. These are the people that are supposed to serve and protect. They're supposed to investigate.
Whereas all they've really done in this investigation is made another victim.
Exactly. Like, don't get me wrong. He is a victim, but John Smart, Ben's father, passed away a couple of years ago. No idea what happened to his son. His mother wakes up every morning and she sees, because the blade is parked up, it's moored, it's not being used. She can see that ship, she can see that boat from her window every morning. And like, they do believe that Scott Watson is responsible. I
understand wanting to pin it on someone, but I just don't understand how you can think it's them.
I don't know.
I know grief works in weird ways, and maybe they've got their own reasons and opinions.
Maybe the police have filled them with crap.
Do you know, but like at the end of the day, like, yeah.
The New Zealand police, in this particular area and this particular instance, have a lot to answer for.
Oh,
in my opinion. Rob Pope has a lot of questions coming for him.
I don't understand how some sort of charity hasn't gotten involved to try and help. Do you know, like, that try and help wrongly convicted convicts and things like that?
The Innocence Project in the US, but I don't know if there's anything in
But like, there has to be some sort of even, like, you know, pro bono lawyer or something. Pro bono lawyer.
Well, now he has lawyers, and the lawyers that he has seem to be quite good. Like, they've finally managed to get him a date for an appeal.
Yeah.
Which will bring into question about the identification.
Finally. Should have been taken into board as soon as it came out that those identifications were retracted.
Like, hang on now, let me actually show you the ID photos.
You'll have to send them to me so I can post them on the Insta.
Yes. So I'm looking for...
But like...
Oh my god, wait, Scott Watson. Couldn't think of his name there.
It's ridiculous. Honestly.
Like, let me just show you the photo that they showed
the witnesses. To be ID'd. If the reception down here will let you. It won't.
Computer says no.
Computer says no. You'll have to show me afterwards.
Blonk.
Link.
I'm determined I'm going to get it. Oh, look, right.
There we go.
So, this is the... Hold on now. So, this is the photo that they showed. Okay, so see...
It does actually look like he has hooded eyes. But he does not at all.
That's what he actually looks like. It was just a poorly timed photo, and the police were like, we're going to run with this. So this is the lineup of what they showed.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's the photo of him from that night.
Clean shaven. Short enough hair.
Short hair. Like, it doesn't look unkempt.
No.
There's the photo again. Like...
He doesn't sound like the suspect that was described at all, not one bit.
No, and like, even he's saying himself, like, he's never going to get justice.
It's not looking like it.
And to be fair, the man has spent like 24 years in prison. It'll be 25 by the time...
By the time the retrial even begins.
Yeah, by the time it's over and everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's 25 years of his life
that
gone.
He's never
and
he
was in his early 20s at the time. Like, that's half his life wasted.
And like some of the best years as well.
Like, it's horrible. Like, it's horrible.
And like, that's the kind of thing that everyone's going to have opinions on. So some people are still going to think guilty, other people are going to believe innocent, you know. So like, that's something that's going to, even if it gets overturned and he does get released, that's something that's going to leave like a stain or judgment on his life.
Guy Wallace, because Guy Wallace was believed to be a suspect initially as well, the water taxi driver, and he said that people he'd known his whole life, he could walk into a room and they'd all stop talking because they so heavily believed the police.
A stain is put in your reputation because the people you trust to be honest and do their job properly and find out information are spreading information that's not right. But people will believe it because, you think you can believe the police. Which is a fair thing to believe that you can trust in the police.
Yeah. It's the same. No, I'm not going to do another comparison to the church.
No, we'll let them slide.
It's just
for this one.
It's an awful case,
disgraceful.
and like to this day, the Smarts and the Hopes don't know what actually happened to their children, to their brother, to their sister, to their loved ones. Like,
that's just to not have answers either.
And like Ben was 21, Olivia was 17. They had their whole lives ahead of them. Like
they weren't even they were younger than us.
They were younger than us, yeah.
I didn't even know what I was at when I was 17. Like I still didn't even know what I was at when I was 21. To be honest, I still don't know what I'm at nearly 25.
But yeah, so that is the case of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope.
And yeah, I'm going to see is there a petition out there.
And Scott Watson, because he's as much of a victim as them.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
He might still be here, but he's not living his best life.
No.
He's been a victim as well, a victim of a fucked up justice system.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's fucked up as a whole, but in this instance, it's
like,
fucked.
He was railroaded.
Wrongly done.
Yeah.
And with that, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And we will see you next week for a joint case.
Yes, which we've already picked. Shout out to Bob for the suggestion.
Roberto, thank you.
Robert.
And it's actually quite funny that he suggested that because we snapped each other at the same time. I was like, I think this one, but you'd also sent the snap at the same time. I was taking
Bob
the snap.
Said we should do this.
Yeah, so I opened it and I was like, that's literally what I just said.
And we had given each other the same suggestion. So
at the same time.
It was meant to be.
Meant to be. But yes, guys, give out those 5-star reviews. I'm going to check again in a while in case there's any added that I haven't seen yet to give a shout out to. But yeah, 5-star reviews on whatever platform you use, whether it's Apple Podcasts, which is the best one to give the reviews on, so please head over there and do that, or any of the other ones. And if you want to get in touch, find us on Instagram, Facebook, I would say Twitter, but I rarely ever use it nor post on it, so that's just kind of there for the sake of it these days.
Some hope of finding me on Facebook anyway, because I never use the fucking thing.
But yes, hit us up, Twisted Talks, the pod. And if for any reason anyone needs to email, twistedtalkspod@gmail.com. And that is it for today. So thanks for listening once again, and hope you had a really good New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And ciao, adios, I'm done.
Ciao, adios, I'm done. Hey!